Hello.
So what's going on?
Actually, Joe's daughter. And then you also said something about who was telling you were going to cut her up and put her in the backyard or something.
I mean, I was considering it because I hadn't worked with the courage to turn myself in yet.
She texted her family. She stayed indoors. She tried to keep the peace. But on a quiet street in Fort Worth, Texas, a woman's life was slipping away while the world carried on, unaware. This is the story of Kristlynne Robertson, a 34-year-old mother of 5, whose marriage would end not in divorce court, but in a bedroom where her body lay undiscovered for days. Before we dig into this case, tell me, where are you watching from, and what's the weather like tonight? I love seeing where our true crime community is tuning in from. Together, we keep these stories alive. And real quick, statistics show that 97% of viewers watching right now aren't subscribed. If you're enjoying this video, take a moment to hit that subscribe button. It's free, and it helps True Crime Inventory grow, bringing more real stories like this to you, and to others who deserve to hear them. Alright, let's get back to the case. March 19th, 2024 started like any other evening for Eric Robertson. He'd been staying at his girlfriend's house for nearly a week, working late shifts, living his life. Around 8:45 p.m., after finishing work past 7 and stopping for gas, he finally headed home to the family house on the 5500 block of Whitman Avenue in Fort Worth. The receipt from that gas station would later become important, timestamping the moment before Eric's world changed forever. The smell hit him the second he walked through the door. It wasn't the usual odor of a house with multiple dogs or the lingering scent of someone who'd been drinking too much. This was different.
And, did you get back today? Is today when you came back?
I came back here around 8:45.
Okay.
I had worked until way after 7, and I had to stop and get fuel. So I've got a receipt with a time stamp on it.
Okay.
For when I was at the gas station. And I think on a previous occasion I might have noticed some kind of smell that wasn't correct.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, they have their dogs and there's 2 other dogs,
Yeah.
you know, and if he's drinking, he might have vomited or something,
God.
you know.
Okay.
So, I'm not 100% sure about that, but, you know,
Okay.
dead bodies smell.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, as soon as I, walked in, I was like, oh, did we catch a rat or something? You know?
But then he saw his brother, Christopher, stumbling through the house in a state of intoxication unlike anything Eric had ever witnessed. And Kristlynne, Christopher's wife, was nowhere to be seen. Eric knew something was catastrophically wrong. Kristlynne rarely left the house due to her medical condition, but she was always there. The bedroom door was open. Inside, Eric found Kristlynne lying face down on the floor, partially wrapped in what looked like a blue shower curtain. She was covered in dried blood. She'd clearly been dead for a long time. Eric got his brother out of the house and immediately called 911. In a moment of panic and good intentions, he also retrieved a Sig Sauer .22 caliber handgun from the bedroom, planning to turn it over to police. By 9:40 p.m., Officer Mendoza from the Fort Worth Police Department arrived at what would become a homicide investigation. Christopher Robertson was so drunk he could barely stand, let alone answer questions coherently. When officers tried to speak with him, his responses were nonsensical rambling about funerals, moving stuff next door, waking up that morning.
Easy. What's happening? On the funeral,
We're outside on the porch, and they're talking to my brother now.
did you eat last night? Woke up this morning, called my buddy, he asked me to move, so, you know, there's actually some for him.
Okay. We have a police officer for that. What do you do?
So you said you went drinking last night and then you woke up?
Oh, yeah, and, you know, we feel stuff next to more, but it's not on information.
Okay. Okay.
Do you have any health problems? Do you have, like, diabetes or anything?
He claimed he'd just seen Kristlynne hours ago, but her body told a very different story. The decomposition was advanced. She'd been dead for days, possibly weeks. Officer Mendoza entered the bedroom and confirmed the worst. Kristlynne was naked, covered in blood, with visible marks on her neck. At 9:55 p.m., she was officially pronounced dead. But this wasn't just a tragic discovery. This was a crime scene that had been sitting undisturbed for an unknown amount of time, and the only other person living in that house was Kristlynne Robertson, now detained in a patrol car outside, too intoxicated to question. What brought Kristlynne Robertson to this moment? Her story with Christopher began decades earlier in the most innocent way possible. They'd known each other since kindergarten, attending the same grade school in Fort Worth. Throughout their childhood and into adulthood, they remained acquaintances. Both eventually married other people. Christopher joined the military, serving in Afghanistan as a military intelligence linguist, a role that required intelligence and discipline. When he returned to Fort Worth in 2016 with a discharge and a failed first marriage behind him, he reconnected with Kristlynne. A romance developed between the old friends. Whatever they'd felt for each other in their youth had apparently survived the years apart. On May 30th, 2020, they married. Kristlynne chose that specific date deliberately. It was the only day of the year when their ages were technically the same, a detail she found romantic. Their birthdays and anniversary would all cluster together. It seemed like a fresh start for both of them. But the reality of their blended family created immediate stress. Kristlynne was a mother to 5 children from her previous relationship. Her 3 younger daughters lived with their father, while her 2 older children were becoming adults. Christopher had 2 children from his first marriage who remained with their mother. Visitation schedules, child support obligations, and the emotional complexity of blended families weighed heavily on them both. Then Kristlynne's health deteriorated. She developed a medical condition that prevented her from working entirely. Some family members suspected it might be related to immune system issues. Others weren't entirely sure what was wrong. What was certain was that Kristlynne became increasingly homebound, rarely venturing outside unless absolutely necessary. The financial burden of supporting the household fell entirely on Christopher, and he was struggling. Their rent kept climbing at their previous residence. Each month became harder than the last. Eventually, they couldn't keep up with payments anymore. Christopher's brother Eric and their mother offered a solution. Move into the family home on Whitman Avenue temporarily, just for a few months until they could stabilize financially and get back on their feet. Christopher and Kristlynne accepted, believing it would be short-term. But temporary became permanent, and the arrangement that was supposed to help them became another source of conflict. Eric and his mother expected Christopher and Kristlynne to contribute more to the household bills.
What, has there been anything up with them, like that you noticed? Do you see him often?
I see him more often than her, but they both wanted to avoid us because, basically our position was that they should be paying more of the bills instead of you're running them up.
Okay.
And they more or less didn't want to pay them. So, the last I texted him was I noticed some, liquor bottles were, empty that didn't belong to him, and he said he would make it up to me.
Okay.
But that was via text, He's not a big, verbal dude, and, last time that I heard his voice before today, he was basically saying that, he wasn't happy with the situation, because, got a disabled wife and got all these kids and all these dogs and yada yada yada, and I was just like, okay, but you don't own this house, so quit yelling. So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This isn't your place. So that was. I didn't say that though. I was just watching him.
Okay.
And then eventually he shut up and went to the bathroom. So, but because of that tension. They actively avoided both me and my mother, but especially.
Okay. And has your brother been going through something, or did you just come visit, or how'd this work?
He's been living here with her for at least 6 months.
Okay.
In that back room.
Yeah.
And, she was supposed to have some kind of medical condition or disability, so she never left unless they were going out surgery.
Got it. Okay.
1 second. Here she is.
So it's sort of known for her not to be seen kind of thing? Like,
yeah, it wouldn't be uncommon for us to not see her for a week on end because she would avoid us.
is it like an immune system thing? Is that what?
I don't know.
Okay. And,
I thought it was Munchausen's myself, but,
oh, yeah?
You had to ask him about it.
Okay.
If he, can talk.
Yeah, exactly. I tried to talk to him.
Yeah.
I couldn't get too much. Do you live here also? Who all lives here?
My mother lives here. I live here. They live here.
Got it.
I stay a lot with my girlfriend, so I haven't physically been here in, at least a couple of days. Yeah.
And what's the last time you saw your sister-in-law?
I don't know. It's been since I physically saw her.
Yeah.
At least a week.
At least a week?
Yeah. And she texted me a few days ago saying that he was drunk.
This isolation, while reducing household friction, would later have devastating consequences. Christopher's drinking, which had been a problem for years, intensified under the stress. This wasn't new behavior. In 2017, the Crowley Police Department had arrested him for making violent threats against a family member. Kristlynne's own family had repeatedly begged her to leave Christopher because of his alcohol abuse and increasingly aggressive behavior. They saw the warning signs. They tried to intervene. Kristlynne chose to stay, perhaps believing she could help him, perhaps feeling trapped by her own circumstances, perhaps still loving the boy she'd known since kindergarten. The drinking got worse. The fights became more frequent and more intense. Christopher felt like he was drowning, and instead of reaching for help, he reached for a bottle. April 4th, 2024. That was the day everything ended for Kristlynne Robertson, though the world wouldn't know for over 2 weeks. Christopher later told detectives that he and Kristlynne were sitting in their bedroom, facing each other in chairs. They'd been arguing again about their situation, the same circular arguments that never resolved anything.
You said she was sitting in a chair earlier, is that correct?
She was sitting in a chair. I was sitting in a chair. We were facing each other, kind of like Mr. Sullivan and I. And, I shot her, and then she just slumped over and fell down on the ground. And, immediately I was like, oh my God, no. And, I tried to shake her and see if she was still alive. But, of course, signs of life started fading pretty quickly. And, I cried a little bit. And then, I just got, rip-roaringly drunk that night because I'm, trying to come to terms with what I did, and I still hadn't decided on whether I was going to turn myself in or not.
The bullet entered her skull, fragments lodging in her brain. She slumped forward and collapsed to the floor. Christopher claimed he immediately tried to shake her awake, desperately checking for signs of life as she faded. He said he cried. Then he made a choice that would define everything that followed. Instead of calling 911, instead of admitting what he'd done, Christopher Robertson got drunk. Extraordinarily drunk. And he stayed that way for the next 15 days. But Christopher didn't just drink and mourn. He went shopping. He visited Harbor Freight and purchased a wood-handled handsaw. He stopped at another store and bought a shower curtain, paying with his credit card, leaving a digital trail. When detectives later asked him about these purchases, Christopher admitted he'd been considering dismembering Kristlynne's body and burying it in the backyard.
And then you also said something about who was telling you were going to cut her up and put her in the backyard or something?
I was considering it because like I said, I hadn't worked up the courage to turn myself in yet. I was like, well, what am I going to do? It's like I could try to dispose of the body. I was like, but that's a terrible idea because she lives here with me, with other people, and she's young and has kids, and a lot of people love her, and they're going to start questioning where she is pretty quickly.
Right. And you had mentioned something about you'd bought a saw or something, correct?
Yes.
You bought that where?
At Harbor Freight.
Did you buy the saw and the shower curtain or tarp together, or?
I think I bought them the same day, but obviously different stores.
Different stores. Okay. Did you pay cash or credit card? Do you remember?
I think just a credit card.
For 15 days, Christopher Robertson lived in that house with his wife's decomposing body wrapped in the shower curtain in their bedroom. He continued drinking heavily, mixing alcohol with Kristlynne's pain medications to numb himself, as he later described it. Eric was staying at his girlfriend's house during most of this period, so Christopher was essentially alone with his secret. During those 2 weeks, someone sent text messages from Kristlynne's phone. Eric received one just days before discovering her body, with Kristlynne warning that Christopher was drunk again. When confronted about this during interrogation, Christopher claimed he didn't know Kristlynne's password and couldn't have accessed her phone. Yet the messages were sent. Someone was maintaining the illusion that Kristlynne was still alive, still texting, still present, even if unseen. The smell of decomposition gradually filled the house. Eric had noticed an odd odor on a previous brief visit home, but attributed it to the dogs, or perhaps Christopher vomiting from excessive drinking. The house was already chaotic. Strange smells weren't entirely unusual, but the scent of death is distinctive, and by March 19th, it was unmistakable. When Eric discovered Kristlynne's body that evening and called 911, officers arrived to a scene of horror and confusion. Christopher was so intoxicated that questioning him was impossible. Any statement he made wouldn't be admissible in court. Officers secured him in a patrol car, while detectives worked to obtain a search warrant. Even after midnight, Detective Anderson successfully convinced a Fort Worth magistrate to grant the warrant, and the investigation began in earnest. Eric provided crucial background to officers while they waited.
Does he have like an issue?
Yeah, he has several issues, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. He's got the dinks,
Uh-huh.
and he's been drinking on and off for a while now. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Does he?
hearing that he's drunk is not good news.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Like
Sort of
more
a
than it would
person
be
kind
for
of
other
thing?
people.
Yeah. Military or anything?
Yeah, he was in Afghanistan.
Okay.
So
You know what branch?
he was military intelligence as a linguist.
A horrifying thought emerged during these conversations. Kristlynne's children had been visiting just weeks earlier during spring break. If the timing had been different, if they'd been present on April 4th or discovered their mother's body themselves, the trauma would have been even more unthinkable. The Tarrant County Medical Examiner finally examined Kristlynne's body thoroughly the following morning. At 9:36 a.m. on March 20th, the cause of death was officially confirmed. A single gunshot wound to the face, fired at close range, with bullet fragments still embedded in her skull. The weapon was consistent with the Sig Sauer .22 caliber handgun that Eric had recovered from the bedroom and turned over to police. What happened next surprised everyone. On the morning of April 21st, Fort Worth police received a 911 call from Kristlynne Robertson himself. Now sober and apparently gripped by fear, he made a rambling, almost incoherent call. He claimed his father-in-law was going to kill him. Then he admitted the truth.
Hello, this is Fort Worth Police. We just received a call from this number. Is there an emergency going on?
Yeah.
There is?
Yeah.
Okay, what's going on?
Whoa.
What's going on?
It's you and me.
Hello?
Yeah, I think my father-in-law was going to tell me, but I'm not sure, so...
So what's going on?
I mean, I actually killed his daughter.
You did what?
I killed his daughter, and, I just need you here.
Okay, where is it?
550 Whitman Avenue.
Okay, and you're there right now?
Yes.
Does she need an ambulance?
We do have several people here who do need an ambulance.
Does she need an ambulance?
We're gonna need, we've got like, one casualty.
You're gonna need what?
3 casualties.
There's nobody here, dude. What are you talking about? It's you and me. We're the only people here, alive or dead. It's you, me, and the dog.
Okay, apparently I was mistaken.
No intruders.
Okay, I hear another voice. Does she need an ambulance?
No, there's
No.
nobody here.
No? Okay. So what's your name, sir?
My name is Chris Robertson.
Kristlynne Robertson was arrested that morning and transported to the Fort Worth police station for interrogation. After being read his Miranda rights, he chose to cooperate. He told detectives he wanted to be in jail where Kristlynne's family couldn't reach him. He was more concerned about potential revenge than about the murder itself. In the interrogation room with Detective Anderson and Detective Solon, Christopher walked through his version of events. He confirmed he'd shot Kristlynne on April 4th while they sat facing each other in chairs. One shot to the face. She slumped forward and fell. He checked for signs of life. Then he embarked on a 2-week drinking binge, mixing alcohol with her pain medication, living with her decomposing body in their bedroom. Christopher admitted to purchasing the handsaw and shower curtain. He acknowledged considering dismembering and burying Kristlynne, but claimed he decided it was a terrible idea because too many people would ask questions. When asked if anyone had told him to buy those items, he said no, it was his own idea. He presented himself as someone paralyzed by guilt, unable to turn himself in, yet calculating enough to buy disposal tools and wipe his phone. That phone became a critical piece of evidence. When Detective Anderson asked about messages sent from Kristlynne's phone after her death, Christopher initially denied having access to it, claiming he didn't know her password. But then he revealed something damning. He'd factory reset his own phone, deliberately destroying potential evidence. This wasn't the action of someone overcome by remorse. This was someone trying to avoid consequences. Throughout the interrogation, Christopher oscillated between expressions of guilt and self-preservation. He called Kristlynne his stupid wife at one point, revealing anger beneath his claimed remorse. He repeatedly asked to be placed alone in a jail cell where he'd be safe from her family. He'd lived with her body for over 2 weeks, drinking, taking her medication, only acting when his brother's discovery forced his hand. The trial took place in early 2025 at the Tarrant County Criminal Courts building. This wasn't a question of guilt or innocence. Christopher had confessed. The physical evidence, the murder weapon, the premeditated purchase of disposal tools, the wiped phone, everything pointed to his culpability. The trial was about justice, about consequences, about how the legal system would respond to a man who'd killed his wife and lived with her body for 15 days. The prosecution emphasized Kristlynne's 5 children, who would now grow up without their mother. They highlighted Christopher's calculated behavior after the murder, the planning evident in his shopping trips, the attempted destruction of evidence. The defense had little to work with beyond Christopher's claims of guilt and remorse, his difficult circumstances, his military service, and subsequent struggles. On March 13, 2025, Christopher Robertson was sentenced to 50 years in prison for the murder of Kristlynne Robertson. At 34 years old when sentenced, he won't be eligible for release until he's in his 80s, effectively a life sentence. The courtroom was filled with people who'd known and loved Kristlynne, people who remembered her as more than a victim, as a mother and friend whose life had been stolen by someone who'd promised to protect her. Fort Worth mourned the loss of Kristlynne Robertson. Her death sparked conversations throughout the community about domestic violence, about the warning signs that are so clear in hindsight but so difficult to recognize in the moment. Christopher's documented history of violent threats, his escalating alcohol consumption, the isolation Kristlynne experienced, the family's concerns. All the pieces were there, but they didn't come together in time to save her. For Kristlynne's children, the loss is immeasurable. 5 kids who'll navigate life's milestones without their mother. For her family and friends, the grief is compounded by those 2 weeks when Kristlynne was already gone but no one knew, when they might have texted or thought about her, unaware she was beyond their reach. This case serves as a devastating reminder that domestic violence doesn't always announce itself with dramatic incidents. Sometimes it's a gradual escalation, a series of concerning moments that individually seem manageable but collectively create a dangerous pattern. Financial stress, substance abuse, isolation, a history of threats. These factors don't guarantee violence, but they create conditions where tragedy becomes possible. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please reach out. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24/7 at 1-800-799-7233. Isolation and financial control are forms of abuse. Threats and substance abuse are serious warning signs. Kristlynne's story reminds us that behind closed doors, in homes that look ordinary from the outside, people can be suffering in silence. We remember Kristlynne Robertson not just for how her life ended, but for who she was, a mother who loved her children, a woman who'd known Christopher since kindergarten and believed in second chances, someone whose medical struggles and financial difficulties trapped her in an increasingly dangerous situation. Her story matters. Her life mattered. And perhaps by understanding what happened to her, we can better recognize when someone in our own lives might need help before it's too late. If you made it to the end, thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and sharing your thoughts in the comments. It helps us keep telling the stories that matter and make sure they reach the people who need to hear them.